Hello guys, welcome to another video. Now in my last one I discussed a very powerful modifier on the new Bound by Destiny duel. That's the Hunter modifier for elemental damage taken as chaos. I'll link that one in the description below if you're interested. But in this video I want to highlight some of the other strong modifiers on this new duel. Specifically some of the 2 influence bonus modifiers, as I feel that many of those are exceptionally powerful for how easy they are to obtain. So firstly, let's briefly discuss how this duel works. This unique item drops from any of the 3 new Pinnacle Atlas bosses, and if it does drop, it's dropped alongside their normal exclusive guaranteed unique drop. So this is potentially an extra drop, and it's approximately a 10% drop rate. So when this item drops, it will have 3 random modifiers. The first is a bonus that you get for having 2 items of a specific influence equipped. The second for having 4, and the third for having 6. The influence types that this duel randomly chooses are the 6 types that existed before Eater and Exarch, that being Elder, Shaper, Crusader, Warlord, Hunter, and Redeemer. And notably, the duel cannot choose the same influence type more than once, so each modifier will require a different influence type. Now, I'm a big fan of this duel, if only for the fact that it makes the old influence types more relevant again. In recent times, Eater and Exarch influence items have typically been vastly superior options for the large majority of builds, and this duel provides some useful modifiers to make you want to use those older influence types again. There's also the Awakener's Orb, which is available as a currency to be able to make double influenced items, which have particularly good synergy with this duel considering that the same influence type cannot appear more than once. So you'll often be looking to satisfy the requirements of 2 of the modifiers, and therefore double influence items are useful in that regard. Remember that you can obtain influenced unique items, either by chancing an influence base, or by using an Omen of Fortune on an influence base, or from a set of influenced unique divination cards. Now strangely, something that I've observed with this duel is that a significant portion of the most powerful modifiers in terms of the relative power level for the amount of influenced items required actually appear in the 2 and 4 influence bonus pool, especially the 2 influence bonus modifiers, which is what this video is all about. So let's take a look at some of those. Beginning with possibly the most powerful 2 influence bonus modifier, 10 to 20% increased cooldown recovery rate if 2 Shaper items are equipped. Now the crazy thing about this modifier is not only the amount of CDR from a single duel, but also the fact that it's tied to Shaper influence. That's because builds that are already investing into cooldown recovery rate are typically already using 2 Shaper influence items for this exact stat. Shaper Belt and Shaper Boots are the 2 largest sources of CDR you can obtain on gear. You can get 16 to 20% CDR on a tier 1 modifier on Shaper Belts, and 10 to 15% on Shaper Boots, that's just a single modifier that you can obtain, or you can get the elevated version of that modifier for 16 to 20% CDR. And with those 2 slots equipped with Shaper items, you'll already satisfy the requirements for this 2 influence bonus modifier. 10 to 20% is crazy considering that a lot of builds investing into CDR make use of Abyss Jewels that provide just 3% each. So that really is a powerful modifier, and there's a lot of those in the 2 influence bonus pool. For example, 10 to 15% increased strength if 2 Warlord items are equipped. Again, a strength stacking build may already be utilising a Warlord amulet for increased strength and increased damage per strength. So reaching the requirement of having 2 Warlord items equipped is going to be trivial, and in return you gain a huge amount of increased strength, likely a lot more than you could gain from any other dual option. And that's the same for the Crusader modifier for increased intelligence, and the Redeemer modifier for increased dexterity. Once again, both of those modifiers have the same alignment type modifiers on the amulet slot, so it becomes very easy to reach that requirement, and as a result, this duel is extremely good value compared to other options. There's also increased maximum life and increased maximum mana modifiers, 10 to 15% each, for Elder and Shaper respectively. I'd say that these are not quite as powerful as the attribute modifiers, but still quite serviceable, especially for life or mana stackers. But there's still some other really strong modifiers here on the 2 influence bonus set. Unaffected by Ignite if 2 Warlord items are equipped. This one enables non-Marauder Fulcrum builds, which was already possible, but this option is likely a lot better. The Fulcrum allows you to reflect elemental ailments that you inflict back to yourself, and this is often paired with the Chieftain's Hina Kora Notable to reflect giant ignites that can then be carried with you and proliferated out to more monsters. But being able to fairly easily access Unaffected by Ignite means that you can do similar setups on other classes. For example, Elementalist builds using Impulsor for explosions to cause large ignites that are then reflected back to you, and you can then carry that ignite with you and proliferate it out to more monsters. You're also able to take advantage of the Elementalist Chill Notable to reflect up to a 40% chill back onto yourself, and reverse that ailment with Winterweave and instead provide more action speed and more damage. There's also an Unaffected by Poison modifier if 2 Hunter items are equipped. This one is interesting with the Golden Rule and Temptation Step, some boosts that are not used very often, to get a lot of damage and increase movement speed. You could also use Apex Slumber or Apex Supremacy for other strong bonuses while you're poisoned. And there's also Replica Red Trail for power charge generation while poisoned, another interesting option there. There are a few other more niche modifiers in the 2 influence bonus set that are not quite as notable but are still going to be worth using on a handful of builds. For example, Nearby Enemies Are Blinded is quite a powerful defensive option for evasion based builds, or Consecrated Ground while stationary, which is also quite good. But I just wanted to cover this set of 2 influence item bonuses from Bound by Destiny, as I feel that this is where a huge amount of power can be gained from such a low investment. It's really easy to satisfy that 2 influence item requirement, and you can gain a lot in return. Now with that said, there are a lot of really good modifiers in the 4 and 6 influence item bonuses, and I may do another video on those in the future, but the further you go, the more of a trade-off it becomes, especially with the 6 item bonuses. There are some good ones in there, but a lot of them start to become questionable as to whether they're really worth it or not, as it starts to become such a huge trade-off, and you really need to consider what you're missing out on by sacrificing some of those item slots. You know, the reason why Eater and Exarch influence items have been so dominant in recent times is because those implicits really are that good, and you're going to be missing out on several of those in some cases. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.